Hello and welcome to 11 Plus for Success. Today we are going to be working on division, 4-digit division. Okay, so this is probably going to be the third or fourth division question, division video rather. So this is division, we can say 4 digits by 2 digits. So you're going to come across it as 4 digits by 2 digits division. Okay, so here is an example. Now, remember in some of the divisions, we have something like 3,000 divided by 20, all those ones. I would probably do another video on that for you to see how pretty easy it is. But there are times when we have a question like 4,000 240, for instance, divided by 16. And don't forget, in 11 plus, it depends on the way the question, the pattern of how the question is being set. Sometimes you have something like this: 4240 divided by an unknown number equals what we don't know. Or you can have something like divided by what we don't know divided by 16 gives you the answer which we haven't worked yet. So, but whichever way it's presented, I just want you to see that it's simply coming from one question. It's simply coming from one question, which is that. Okay? So what they do is they work out the question, find the answer, and then just remove one part. For instance, remove that. Okay? And they put their box. Or they remove that, this one, and they put their box. So when you see this, don't get worried. Don't start getting yourself worried. It's very easy. Okay? Now again, in the different questions, there are different ways to get them done. But for us to do it, I'm talking about these two aspects. For us to do that, we need to go ahead and find the answer to this first. So here we go. 4,240 divided by 16. Like I said before, two ways to do it. You can easily just say 4240 divided by 16, in which case what you need to find out is what is the common factor, which number can easily be used to divide 16 and at the same time be used to divide 4,240. It's not all the time that you would have a breakthrough answer. Okay, there are times when you pick one common factor, or sometimes you don't even have one, so you have to use the whole number, like 16, and then find out how many lots of 16 can you find in 42, something like that. You go by that. But in this question, I can see that there is a possibility. Okay, so I can use 4. Okay, I can use 4 because I'm noticing something in terms of 4 times 7, that 4 times 10 is 40. So that is there. Okay, and I can't use 3 because obviously 3, 14 and 3, they have friendship there. Okay, 14 times 3, which is 3 times 4, 12, 3 times 1, 3 add 1, 4. Can you see? 14 and 3, they have friendship, but I can't use 3. So in that case, I'm going to avoid 3. So I can manage to use 4. I can also use 8. Okay, I know there's going to be a remainder somewhere here, which I'm going to then add here, and then we divide along. Okay, so because I can use 8, I won't stop at 4, because then that means I'm going to divide again. Okay, so let's go. 8, oopsie daisy. That's 16. So 8 in 16 is 2. And let's start from here. Of course, 8 in 4 is a 0. I just put that 0 there. 8 in 42. 8 times, so you look into your times table now. 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 5 is 40. So you don't need to use your fingers like 8 times 5, 8 times 2, 3, 8 times 2. No. There's no time for that in 11 plus, or probably even in higher exams. You have to use your times table. The times table is there to help you to find division or multiplication very easy. Okay, so we already know that 8 times 5 is 40. So first from here, I know that I have a 5, remainder 2. I put my 2 here, and this turns to 24. Again, don't forget you can't find 8 here, right? But don't forget that I've already used that 8 to divide 16, giving me this 2, and that 2 still remains. Now the same 8, because we are dividing the same number, the same 8 divided, how many lots of 8 rather can we find in 24? Of course, 8 times 2 is 16, 8 times 3 is 24, so is 3. And then don't ever ignore this 0, please. Don't ever ignore the 0. Okay, don't just say, oh, the answer is 53, because if you say 53 times 8, I can guarantee you 5 times 8 is 40, 50 times 8 is 400. Okay, so you will never get to 4,000. That is why we can then say 8 in 0 is 0. So your answer first is 530 divided by 2. As you can see, I can still go on to divide, isn't it? So 2 here, 1, 2 here, 2. 2, remainder 1, right? So I put my 1 here. Sorry, let me just write this clearly. I put my 1 there, making 13. 2 in 13, of course, 2 times 6 is 12. So I write 6 down, remainder 1. I put my 1 there. And then I say 2 in 10. That's 10, right? 5. So my answer is 265. That's one way of doing it. Okay? Because I already reduced it a bit lower, and then I can easily divide by 2. Another way is this. 4240, right? Let's be sure. 4240 divided by 16. 4240 divided by 16. First, okay, we'll come back to that. That could be our third step. First, we used 8 last time. This time you can actually use the whole of 16. Okay, you can say to yourself 16 here, 1. This is the reason why you need to know like up to 40, 50 times table in especially for the purpose of 11 plus, or for any other exam, which is like 11 and above. So 16 times 2 is 32. Okay, 16 times 3, I'm going to write it here so you can see. 16 times 3, we know that 6 times 3 is 18. So that gives me a clue that 16 times 3 is 48. Okay, that's another clue, another way out for you in the exam to try and find out what figure is closer. Okay, so 16 times 3 is 48. So we have 2, because 16 times 2 is 32. Remainder what? 42, 48. Remainder 16. Okay, remainder 16. How many lots of 16 can we find in 164? So you need to now begin to find out for yourself how many lots of 16 can I find in 164. You see why the first one, now I love this because it's easy for you to find out which one is easy for you to do. Now because you see 16 here and then you see 16 here, don't automatically think, oh yeah, we can say 16 in 1 here, 16 in 1 here. No, this now turns to 1640. So 164. Now again, 16 times 10 is what? 160. 16 times 10 is 160. Okay, so have you noticed something? There was a mistake somewhere. In the process of calculating 16 times 3, I forgot totally that this is not 48, that this is 42. I love this, honestly. It helps us a lot to discover it helps you to discover yourself when you're making mistakes. Did you notice what I did? I tried to calculate, and in my calculation, I was thinking 16 times 3, 48, whereas they required 42. So I've already added extra 6, which was not needed. So this is obviously going to be wrong. So let's go again. 16 times 2 is 32, right? But we are going to 42. So remainder 10. I love this. So we now have 104. Now again, you question yourself, how many lots of 16 will I find in 104? So the first step is think your 16 times table again. 16 times 2 is 32, times 3 is 48. Okay, let me show you something. 16 times 2 is 32, 16 times 3 is 48. Let me show you. There's something I want to quickly pick out from there. 32. 16 times 3 is 48. Instead of me going back and saying 16 times 4 is this, 16 times 5 is that, why don't I say this? Since I know that 16 times 3 is 48, yes, then 16 times 6 is going to be, because I double this, okay, because I multiply this by 2, if I multiply this by 2 as well, it tells me a solution. No, so look, 16 times 3 is 48, and all I did was to multiply this 3 by 2 here to make it 6, and then I can come here and say 48 times 2. Okay, so if 16 times 6, for those who may be struggling with how to multiply such question, I'll try as much as possible to repeat it over and over again so that you get used to it. 16 times 6, 6 times 6 is 36. I put a 6 down, remainder 3. 6 times 1, 6 plus 3, 9. 96. Okay? Now, I'm going to try and do 48 times 2 as well so you can see. 48 times 2, 2 times 8 is 16. Remainder 1. 4 times 2 is 8. Add 1, 9. So, you can see that for both sides, we got 96. 16 times 6 is 96. 48 times 2 is 96. So that tells me that 16 times 6 is 96. See how I jumped from 48 straight to 96. See how instead of me to do 16 times 4 and 16 times 5, I moved quickly to 16 times 6, making my life easy. Now, if you notice, I'm very close to 104. I'm very close to 104. Now, what I discovered from there is this. If 16 times 6 is 96, if I add 10 more, it's going to give me 106, right? And I need 104. So that tells me that, what do you think that tells you? That tells me something. It tells me simply that I've gone past, if I do 16 times 7, okay? If I do 16 times 7, I'm going to go over. So I better stay on that 16 times 6, which is 96. And then my next figure here will be 6. Will be 6. I better write the answer somewhere so you can see. 2 and a 6. And I'm left with what remainder? 8. Okay? Don't forget that we got to 16 times 6, which is 96. And 104 minus 96. Of course, we can't do this. 4 minus 6, impossible. So we go to this neighbor. Hello, neighbor. We borrow 1 from you. Got 0 now. We give you got to 10. And we borrow 1 from you, neighbor. Now, neighbor, you're 9. And then, hello, friend, you're now 14. 14 minus 6 is 8. 9 minus 9 is 0. So, you already know, based on my calculation, that 16 times 6 is 96. 104 minus 96 is 8. So, our remainder is 8. Okay? But remember the way I said it initially. 16 times 6 is 96. How many more do I need to get to 104? if I do add 10, it's going to give me to 106, and therefore I will be going over the requirement. So I step backwards a little bit by staying on 16 times 6, and then I just find the remainder before I get to 104. So that's why that's how we got 8. So 16 times what will give us 80. That's basically what this is asking you. 16 times what will give us 80. So let's go. 16 times 3 is 48, right? And we know that 16 times 6 is 96. So that means if I go to 96, I will be wrong. Okay? So I can easily say 16 times 4 is 64. Okay? Now watch. 16 times 4. Or did I say 64 now? Yeah, I'm right. 16 times 4, I say is 64, because I know that 16 add 16 add 16 one second, add 16, and if I go on like that, simply means I'll put another one now. 16. If I go on like that, depending on the number of 16s, the lot of 16s that I count tells me that it's also in multiplication 16 times, in this case is 1 2 3 4 5, 16 times 5. Okay, because I know that now I've done this and that, I'm left with 1. I can't go further because I know it's going to go over. So I can easily say to myself, let me just try to add it. Let me see if it's going to make a difference, if it's going to get me to 80. So let's go. And then I'm going to say add 16. 4 add 6 is 10. 6 add 1 is 7. Add 1 more is 80. Okay? And then what does that tell you? It tells me that 16 times 5 lots of 16 gives me 80. So my last figure here is 5. And if we go back here, you will discover that we got the same answer. Okay? Now, this may be a bit long, but it's for a purpose. It's for a purpose, especially if you're someone out there, you're struggling to understand some of these things in class. This video is there to actually help you to grab the understanding how it works, especially if your foundation in mathematics is not that strong. These videos are there to help to build your knowledge. Okay, build your knowledge and get you to the right stage that is required of you. I hope you have been able to understand this. You can create 10-20 questions for yourself and then try and work it out. Now sometimes working it out may be it may be boring. Let me just say it that way. It may be boring to you, but seriously speaking, try your best, because at some point as you grow up, what would then happen is, if somebody wakes you up from your sleep and say to you, what is 5,406 divided by 3? You will be able to say, oh well, from the back I can see that 3 lots, we can find 2 lots of 3 in 6, so that is very possible. And then you can go ahead and do your division. Thank you for listening. God bless you. And my other videos are there. Feel free, watch. Put your comments in the chat room as well. God bless you.